He said, I will never leave you. Say never. How old are you, son? 8. I'm 8 too, but it's 82. But what a fantastic young fellow he is. Curly hair, good looking. And it's not your fault you're good looking. So thank God you are.
So your dad was openly saying this stuff to kids in church during a sermon. Does that not suggest that not everyone knew he had confessed years earlier to being a pedophile?
You're actually telling me stuff I've never heard before.
The sermon happened at Bob Cotton's Assemblies of God Church while Brian Houston was still their president.
Why didn't people say, listen, he's a child abuser, he's a pedophile?
Yeah, that's a fair question, and to be honest with you, I wish that Dad did take a harder line. Again, you're telling me all sorts of information I actually haven't heard.
The question is as to whether other people knew, because that's what's really raising...
Whether they did or not, it certainly wasn't my fault.
In July this year, Scott Morrison and his wife Jenny were welcomed to the Hillsong Conference.
Hello, everybody.
By founder and global senior pastor Brian Houston.
More than anything else, we thank you for Jesus and his love, and we pray that his love will be shown through your church forevermore. Amen. I got one more thing to pray for.
Pray for me.
I'll pray for you. I want to pray for the drought.
It was shocking. I couldn't believe the audacity. Here's the Prime Minister of this country on stage with Brian Houston, who's currently under investigation by the New South Wales Police for concealing crimes of his father, and they're up there with their arms around each other. I'm absolutely lost for words.
Since at least November last year, New South Wales Police has been investigating the handling of Frank Houston's abuse, including Brian Houston's decision not to notify police. And that kicked off a volley of questions, all of them unanswered.
Did you suggest he be put on the guest list for the White House dinner?
David, the White House decides who comes to these events.
But it's a straightforward question, whether you suggested his name for this dinner.
No, I don't think it's helpful, David.
Answer the question, Mr. Morrison. Answer the question.
I think the public has a right to know whether our Prime Minister asked for Mr Brian Houston to go to the White House.
Is the contents of that Wall Street article correct, true or false, yes or no?
To the children, we failed. Sorry.
The national apology, what was the point in doing it?
To the whistleblowers, who we did not listen to, sorry.
It was just an absolute scam. I think publicly he did it to appease all the abuse survivors in this country, but as for backing it up with anything, it's absolutely monstrous. It's an absolute disgrace.
Brett Sengstock hasn't just been fighting for justice. He's also been fighting for his life against a deadly lymphoma.
They told me I was going into organ failure. I was completely broke. So I sold my Holden. It was very nice. It was a lovely SS. It was a new model Commodore. I sold that for the funeral costs.
After a stem cell transplant late last year, thankfully Brett is in remission.
I think everybody forgets Brett hasn't done anything wrong. He's the innocent victim here, but yet he's treated like a troublemaker. Go away, be quiet, get over it.
People are going to say, yeah, but what about the victim? Who's giving him support? And I mean, it's a fair question. It's a good question, and it just grieves me.
We're meant to represent Jesus Christ in this world. We're meant to do the things that Jesus would do. But the fact of the matter is, our executive, the leadership of our organisation, has done exactly the opposite to what Jesus would do.
Which is why Pastor Bob Cotton has written 3,000 letters to Australian Christian churches, once again asking them to support Brett.
Why did the church not compensate Brett?
Well, this is a great question, Lisa, because why doesn't the church compensate all victims of child sex abuse by clergy? We shouldn't be trying to fight to hang on to our money and deprive people of justice and compensation. In fact, we should be rushing towards them to do what we can do to help.
Is it hard for you to stay with the church when you know they treat people like this, the most vulnerable?
Well, it's not hard for me to stay within the church, but it is hard for me to stay quiet.
What do you think that little boy that you once were, who used to pass out before Frank Houston raped you, what do you think that little boy would think of the man you are today?
Cheer me on. Cheer me on. And I'm going to keep on going. No matter what it takes, I'm going to keep on fighting on.
Well,
we had a number of questions that we wanted to put to Scott Morrison, and we did ask the Prime Minister's office for an interview, and we haven't received a response. Earlier this week, the Prime Minister spoke about the scheme to compensate victims of institutional child sexual abuse. For those institutions yet to sign up, he said this.
All they're doing in not joining this is doubling down on the crimes and doubling down on the hurt. And so to them I say, who have not joined, join. Do the decent thing. Do the right thing. Do the honourable thing.
Well, for the record, Brian Houston's church Hillsong has not signed on to the redress scheme as yet. They tell us they intend to, but they're still working through what their response is going to be. And of course, if this story has raised any issues for you, please feel free to contact Lifeline on 13 11 14.